Putin categorically does not want to end the war. Moreover, it frightens him. Evidently, this is the opinion of his cronies as well. That is why we have what we have. Meanwhile, the US is gradually shifting its focus. Ukraine was never really in their interests. I meant to say the focus of interest, the focus of attention, is on the Middle East in particular. And because of that, Volodymyr Zelensky is simply forced to remind our dear partners, so-called partners, speaking plainly, that Ukraine still exists, Ukraine is still fighting, and Ukraine still needs a little bit of your help. Just a tiny bit. Please just hold on a little longer. Please just hold on a little longer. You are all supposedly tired of the war while on the coast somewhere in Florida or at Mar-a-Lago. No. Trump is tired of the war while playing golf, but please help us just a little bit more. So today Zelensky made further statements regarding the Russian-Ukrainian war. He said that unfortunately Ukraine is currently not in the US focus. That the number one issue for them is Iran, and only then comes the issue of Ukraine. He said this during a joint meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who, let us recall, visited the Ukrainian capital yesterday. According to Zelensky, Ukraine is still awaiting the arrival of an American negotiating team, but the process is being delayed by other international crises. Unfortunately, today we are not in the focus. In my opinion, the issue of Iran is currently number one for the US, and Ukraine follows after that. We are essentially waiting in the queue of these wars. Head of the Ukrainian state stated with sadness, At the same time, he emphasized that it is the United States that has the greatest influence on Russia and can force the terrorist Putin to agree to end the war. Ukraine, Zelensky said, supports any format of negotiations if it helps to achieve peace as quickly as possible. For us, the main thing, says the president, is to end the war. There is no alternative here. That is precisely why I have repeatedly said we are ready for any format of negotiations. I am ready for negotiations with Putin if it helps to end the war faster, rather than waiting until the world deals with all other military conflicts, declared Volodymyr Zelensky. In his opinion, the most effective option for us would be the joint participation of the United States and other international partners, particularly EU member states, in the negotiations. After all, the war is taking place on the European continent. And indeed, that is how it is. We have what we have. Now I would like to talk about a publication from Bloomberg. According to their information, citing certain sources, the report states that Germany, France, and Britain are developing a plan to bring Putin to negotiations regarding the end of the Russian-Ukrainian war. The partner countries are allegedly discussing the possibility of holding negotiations with the participation of both sides, which obviously means Russia and Ukraine. Well, basically, why do you think that, seeing the absolute fruitlessness of US mediation in the Russian-Ukrainian war, European partners, instead of looking for other paths, still want to follow this one? What, in your opinion, is behind this? Are they afraid of Putin? Are they afraid of losing those economic ties with Russia? Which countries' economies, or are there other factors?
You know, the hypothesis that any of the people you listed are afraid of Putin seems quite weak to me. Well, what exactly would Macron, Proxor, Starmer have to fear from Putin? Putin currently poses no threat to any of them personally, nor to any of the countries you listed as a whole. So what this is most likely work for a domestic audience. Yeah. I am not convinced by what many say. Do they really not understand that Putin won't stop the war? I think they do understand. But I am not inclined to consider European leaders stupider than myself. I think they understand everything. They are working for a domestic audience. You know, relatively recently, on the eve of the St. Petersburg Forum, there was a survey conducted by the German Rus Chamber of Commerce, of Commerce. And they conducted this survey among several hundred members of the organization. I emphasize that this is an organization that consists of German business representatives who are somehow present in Russia. So they have a fairly large number of members, several hundred, over 800 people. If I'm not mistaken, about 300 of them were surveyed. And they express a wish saying that their business is doing well in Russia. And most of them expressed a desire for Europe to return to purchasing Russian gas and oil. So you see politicians in these countries, Germany, France, Great Britain, have to deal with different sentiments at Pueblo. In particular, in Germany, they're rising very strongly. Right now, well, alternative for Germany is #1 in the ratings. Just mention the sentiments within German business. Not all of it, no, but the part oriented toward Russia, and that is a fairly large business segment. People also perceive the situation differently. There are sentiments in the eastern part of Germany that are largely against helping Ukraine. So in reality, they have to deal with different people, with their own voters, with their own population. And I think this attempt to some extent is a gesture toward the third part of their population, their voters, who advocate for at any price, including by creating doing some kind of negotiation process and making discussions to Putin. The fact that this is unrealistic, well, I think politicians understand that. But they are making a gesture toward their voters in this way. I think that is the only possible hypothesis that comes to mind. Everything else, it seems to me, would imply the assumption that European politicians are very stupid or cowardly people. I think that neither is true. This is work for their voters.
Igor, thank you for joining us. I really hope to see you again soon. Take care of yourself and all the best.
Thank you. Take care. Good luck.
Journalist and publicist Igor Yakovenko was just now on a direct line with our studio, and we will talk a little bit more about the Cardronius page as of this hour. The request that ended the conversation with our guest was about European partners looking for approaches to Putin, education into the negotiation process to finally end the Russian-Ukrainian war. How can it be ended in a sustainable way and not just on paper or with fake promises? Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council, reflects on this. He spoke about this in his latest video in his blog, which I propose we listen to right now.
Friends, greetings. The only truth that really exists, the only truth is that no one will solve our problems for us except ourselves. All our lives. Since Soviet times, there has been this mentality that someone else should solve everything for us. The Soviet Union did this consciously. It turned people into slaves for whom the state and the Communist Party decided everything. And it was passed down a little bit. Such people have become fewer and fewer and fewer. But even recently, there was a thought among us that Trump would bring us peace instead of us. He will not. If we are not to lose South strong, if we do not strike Russia on its territory, which we are doing, if we do not intensify the strikes we do not neutralize the enemy in such numbers as we are now, nothing will happen. We are neutralizing more of the enemy than they are recruiting volunteers. Our drones offline over Russia, St. Petersburg, Moscow, regions, all oil refineries, chemical plants, and so on, all military industrial complex facilities.